Hey everybody, welcome to Sweetcast. It's Clint. There's like so many stories going on right now that I could be talking about. It feels like there's too much, because if I make all the videos that I feel like need to be made, I'm going to miss everything. So I'm going to touch on a few little things here. And this is really, I think I'm going to call this video using drama to sell comics part 2 or something like that. And I think there could be many, many parts. Now, I kind of get tired of hearing either directly or indirectly how I am using drama to sell comics, or like Comicsgate is using drama to sell comics, or things like that. Now, like I already explained in the last video on trauma, that drama is used to sell everything. Okay? I'm not talking about interpersonal drama, or like from person to person where you've got a Twitter beef with one person or something like that. That's a whole different thing. What I'm talking about is clickbait, and you just going out of your way to make something sound more exciting than it really is, or ought to be, or you're putting just a spin on it to make it sound dramatic. Now that's how the world works. If you don't like it, don't fall for it, I guess. The thing is, that's just human nature, and people know that. That's how it works. So here's one example I saw this on, and Douglas Ernst did a really great video on this. He did a quick video on it, but he also posted this on Twitter, and this is just a segment from selectively released segment from an X-Men film. I haven't even been keeping up. Is this Dark Phoenix? I'm assuming, with Jennifer Lawrence talking about the Whammon. And so I'm going to play this little clip for you. Dun dun dun. Now let's pretend that this was there was no reason. This is just a random clip that's out there for promotional material. Now, we can't pretend that. Of course, this video exists because they know that I am going to make a video on it, and Douglas Ernst is going to make a video on it, and probably, like, who knows how many dozens of other people are going to make videos on it, and we're going to make it sound as interesting as we possibly can, because that's the way the world works, so that you all will watch our videos, and we can get the meager ad revenue that comes from that. And then, in turn, the people making the film, who's this Fox, making the movie, they can get an even bigger portion because everybody fell for it, and they're all annoyed about how annoying this line from Jennifer Lawrence is. That's the way that things work. Now, I'm still making a video on it, of course, because it's it says something about our culture, and honestly, that's what the channel exists for. Comics and culture, this exists. So here's the thing. It's a really weird relationship that goes on between these big companies and then small YouTubers, or comics news sites, or all sorts of different people that are reporting on it, because they know if they do something like this that's politically charged, and also kind of a random straw man kind of thing that's going on. It is silly too. Like, I'll just say a word here on the whole argument. Like, the women are always saving the men around here. In the movie, in this fictional movie, that's how things work. In the real world, it's just so much more complicated than that. And it's not like, it's just much more complicated. I'm going to say, just like anything else, keeping score is silly. So whatever. I guess they're going to be called the X people from now on. And you see what I did there? I had a comment on it. You watch the video, you're thinking about it, and that is how marketing is going to be working. And I think it's going to be going forward like this more and more frequently. You're going to see more hot button issues touched upon because it draws interest. It's like driving down a freeway and you see the accident on the side of the road, and everybody's slowing down and rubbernecking, or there's a police officer pulling someone over. No lanes are blocked, but something's going on the side of the road, and so everybody's slowing down so they can get a glimpse of what's going on. And at the same time, everybody is annoyed that traffic is slowing, and they think to themselves, why is everybody watching this accident? Why don't you just keep moving? Just ignore it. There's nothing going on. It's just a little fender bender on the side of the road, and yet it's slowed down all of traffic because of it. That's the honest to goodness truth. Everybody thinks it's somebody else and not them. The truth is, in mass, that's how people think. They know that's how your brain works. You want to see conflict. That's why we like stories. That's why we like interesting content. Okay, so this is just one portion of it today, but I keep seeing more examples, and this is recent stuff too. So if I jump over to Bleeding Cool, another thing I want to point out is, if you think, you probably don't think this, but if you think that Bleeding Cool is somehow a legitimate comics news site, and we'll say like Sweetcast is not a legitimate comics news site, or other YouTube channels or whatever, I would want to know what exactly is the difference. There is no difference. In fact, I think for when I get accused of using clickbait, clickbait can be used to be interesting to people as long as you satisfy them and give them something that they want, that they came there for, right? You don't want to have clickbait that brings them somewhere and you don't deliver on the supposed promise of what's going on. I hope this all makes sense. Okay, so here's the article that came out. It says Marvel editor-in-chief wants someone to create a comic book character called Clickbait. Now, if you really look at that title, what exactly does that mean? You actually look at the content here, and what is there? They're going off of like 3 tweets that were kind of just jokes, but this is news. and then here's another level deep. I'm making a video about this. It ripples. This is how it works. So knowing that this is how it works, it's actually not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing as long as you can say your piece too. It totally works both ways. You take advantage of it. And if you're not satisfying with the content that you're providing, then people are going to get upset. They'll be annoyed. And so this is this is actually a pretty funny article. And so hats off. So, okay. Marvel editor-in-chief CB Cebulski is taking cues from a friend of his boss, Ike Perlmutter. I know I said that wrong. We'll just go with it. By calling on comic book creators and to retaliate against the media. Cebulski took to Twitter to deride recent clickbait headlines about his appearance at a Swedish comic book convention, which have originated from comicbook.com and spread to other shameless click-thirsty websites which shall not be named. These links, by the way, go to Bleeding Cool articles. So they're self-aware, and this is an extremely self-aware video that I'm making as well. But this is the first time really that I've seen Bleeding Cool just admit what it is and call a spade a spade. The article that they're talking about, the video that was on comicbook.com, that's the same video I made a video on CB Cebulski because he said something, and he is editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics. I mean, it makes sense. It is news. That's his opinion, especially if you're into entertainment. So it is news. That's fair game. How that news is presented, it's all determined upon the person reporting the news. Now, if that's obnoxious to CB, well, I guess I don't care. Because it's also obnoxious to be told what you are and are not allowed to report on or talk about. And you're not allowed to have an opinion on it, even though I've never claimed to be a straight news channel. This is just an opinion. Bleeding Cool, on the other hand, will go through these phases of pretending to be impartial, which is just not true. I mean, again, if you're totally transparent about what it is that you're doing, you're trying to make interesting content that people will click on and come to and read and get some amount of value from it, and they can move on their merry way and feel like they're satisfied. Okay, yeah, we're just bearing it all here. Okay, so Sobolski wondered whether anyone had yet created a comic book character named Clickbait, suggesting the character would make a good Deadpool villain or arcade sidekick. CB Sobolski says, has anyone created a comic book character called Clickbait yet? There has to be, right? Feels like a good name for a Deadpool villain or a sidekick for arcade. Yeah, there he goes. Okay, so here's the thing. You can call it Clickbait, and I'm not going to defend Bleeding Cool because I think that they have a lot of problems with their site, and Clickbait is at the very least of their worries. But my point is that companies like Marvel will use clickbait, and we'll call it drama sometimes. They'll use that sort of reaction or the button pushing that they're going to do. They're going to use some kind of an emotional reaction to their benefit, and they're not going to complain. The problem is when they cannot control it, when it goes a different direction than they are hoping or were hoping, then they're going to cry foul. That's how it works every single time. That's why when you see this Jennifer Lawrence clip come out, you're probably going to hear some things because, I made a video about it. Doug made a video. I'm sure a lot of people were making videos about it and talking about how obnoxious it is. Then that gives them an opportunity to grandstand. That gives an opportunity for people to be fighting on Twitter and talking about X-Men and driving more people to go buy tickets because it's on their minds, and it has now become the talk of the town. So, yeah, unfortunately, they have not discovered a way to drive this kind of interest without being divisive. And it's happening more and more because it has worked so well. Really, I mean, in late night, like comedy, The Daily Show, essentially every single late night comedy show that you can think of does exactly this. They're picking a side, they're hitting it hard, they're making some people very happy and some people very angry, and it gets people to talk about it online. And I don't believe that any of this would actually have legs if social media didn't exist, specifically Twitter. If Twitter did not exist, this kind of marketing would be much less effective. But it gets past them. When you've conditioned people, remember, you represent the major corporation, okay, that has access to the best marketing minds. They have access to information and data on what people do and what sells, all that kind of stuff, okay? And how they choose to spend their dollars on marketing is it's telling, really is. Okay, so I'm going to continue on the article here. Sobolski then further mocked the comic book media, which works tirelessly to bring readers to the latest comic book news in tiny bite-sized, highly search engine optimized morsels, often even less pay and benefits than even a Marvel employee. Yeah, this is actually pretty funny. This was Jude Terror that wrote this. Yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah, it is true. Like you can call it clickbait, and sometimes it's clickbait, but you know what? You got to play the game to survive. Yeah, they know this. And the other half of the game is when things get out of your hands, you've got to pretend like you're outraged and turned on Twitter, like literally doing the same thing. Such a funny world we live in. This is so meta now that it, yeah. Okay, so CB Sobolski tweeted, "Oh, and while we're at it, I like the X-Men better than Avengers." Okay, and then that causes an outrage. Okay, so I will say the video that I made on the drama selling, I used that video of CB Sobolski answering the question about death in comics to make the point that Marvel uses death in comics, or they used to anyway, quite often, as a selling feature to create drama and outrage. Now, what are they doing to create drama and outrage? It is absolutely interpersonal. It's between people on Twitter. It's funny because it's totally fine for someone like CB Sobolski to call out Bleeding Cool, but when it's happening from other other media outlet sources like Sweetcast, then people have problems with it. But it's okay coming from Marvel. This is, I don't know, it's just it really is this like weird tangle of finger pointing and finger wagging and outrage. So we might as well use it to our advantage and do it tastefully, I think. And that is, maybe it can be a fine line to walk. I don't know. That is right now the landscape. That is how things work. Honestly, I think Marvel Comics is doing it poorly. And I think that eventually they're going to wear out of the shock factor, especially with these political statements that they're making in films, especially in comics. I think it's already worn out entirely, which is why comics is in such trouble right now. But I'd love to know what you think. This is, again, though, there's going to be more. And I'm really interested in when I see this stuff go down, because the longer I've had a YouTube channel, the more I notice these things. Having access to a platform and seeing the algorithm in practice, it is really, really informative on how humans interact with the stuff that you're putting out there. Bleeding Cool is not using YouTube in the same way, but they are using their website, and they still get analytics, and they know what people are interested in and what they're not interested in, and they're pushing buttons. The problem is, how can you do it with people when they get there and they click on it and they have, this super villain named Clickbait? How do they get in there and still have a fun experience, right? How are you still satisfying them? You've brought them in with an interesting title. How do you satisfy to them? And comics, unfortunately, is doing a worse job. We'll say Marvel Comics specifically is doing a worse job than many other media outlets out there, even little tiny channels that shall remain nameless. They're doing a worse job. So let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd be really interested. I realize this is super into the weeds, but it really is interesting, and it has, I think, more effect on comics and the industry at large than sometimes I'm aware of. It is interesting to see. It's informative. So let me know, and don't forget to back down, cast the links in the description, and I will see you next time.